Welcome to Yellow Man. This is Sherilyn Goldammer, and I'm going to give you a little preview of this incredible play written by Dale Orlander Smith um, that was originally produced in the year 2002 and has since actually been running. I found some recent dates where it was being produced up until 2016. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything where it was being produced now into 2017. I, for one, certainly would have been one that would have jumped into being able to go check some of that out. The playwright of this particular writing was born Donna Dale Teresa Orlander Smith Brown. And she was born in 1959 and grew up in New York's rough East Harlem. She attended Roman Catholic parochial school, which was really a hardship for her mother at the time to do, and certain, based on some interviews that I read on her, that it definitely did impact her thinking and her thought process. And I believe it must have really spurred some imagination for her as well. I thought it was very interesting in some of the materials that I read that as a child, she said she got grief from her peers for listening to white music like the Doors and the Who. And I guess that jumped out at me just for the fact that in the play, Elma is shown as really enjoying a lot of current music that isn't necessarily cultural music other than American culture. And Dale does a wonderful job of engaging us into that particular character and how the music and the rhythms set her free. But the playwright gives us an opportunity to really look at a topic that we may not have been aware of up until now. And I think one of the real talents that she has is that she is able to bring a story to life in a very simplistic way. Two chairs on the stage, for instance, but the content of the play is incredibly deep and challenging and thoughtful. One of the quotes that I read that she stated within an interview: there is humanity within a bleak story. We find that humanity by exposing the darkness. I use language as a tool. Just the fact that the story itself is told, and hopefully well, is case for hope. So this playwright is willing to take that risk, and I find it very brave, courageous, and great. I'm grateful that even though she may be writing about something that is dark and obviously, like with Yellow Man, potentially ugly, about who we are as people, as humans, but that when she is telling that story, she believes that within that tale and the unfolding of it and breathing life into it and understanding into it gives us hope. Also, as a woman very similar in age to this particular playwright, I just had to put in that I completely appreciate her quote on "I want to make some noise." She is wanting to make a ripple effect in society and within culture, and she wants to create some spontaneous discussion and thoughtful discussion. And I can't think of anything more powerful than to have a life that you accomplish something like that. So a little bit more about Yellow Man. It was written um, in before and staged in Princeton in 2002, like we talked about before. But this was her first play that she had more than one character. And again, the stage remained very simplistic. Yellow Man is cloaked in the issue of black on black racism inside of a love story. I read a piece that, in a couple of different pieces actually, where they discussed the love story portion of this particular play is very similar to Romeo and Juliet, and I found that really interesting. I also found the issue of black on black racism to be intriguing and very sad, and certainly a reality I had not realized up until this point. I think I probably had understood how we can bring each other down as women, or we can bring each other down as men, or as mothers, or within culture, or within religion. But I really had not thought of this particular issue before, and I find it to be added to the list of very sad things that we do to ourselves as humans. But her writing of this story helps us to understand what we can do better. One of the things that this particular playwright is really recognized for is her ability to create a cadence, they say, within the language, and that she's able to repeat herself in a way that you don't know that she's repeating herself, but she's able then, through that repetition and that cadence, to really bring her point home. One of the quotes from the play that represents this cadence is this particular one when she is thinking about the women that have come before her. And she says, "This is what my mother and her mother before her believed. They believed, had they been born rich and high yella, they wouldn't have suffered. My mother and her mother before her believed. If only they could be light, light and rich, if they could marry a light-skinned man, they'd be loved." End quote. And so you can kind of see the cadence and the poem and the rhythm that she has within her words. One of the things also that I'd like to think about historically for this particular play that really teaches us about history in America is to understand that the Emancipation Proclamation, or Proclamation 95, was a presidential proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln in 1863 and essentially changed the federal status of more than 3 million enslaved people. Very, very powerful proclamation. And then also for those of us that live in the Midwest, to help us understand that in 1863, less than 8% of African Americans lived in the Northeast or the Midwest. And certainly that is something that we may not recognize was unique, or what that percentage was, how few, little, I guess, diversity that we really had in this area. On the left-hand side, I have just some things that I really learned in the research and background of this as well, is that they call it the Great Migration from 1910 to 1940, when after the Civil War and after this proclamation, 4.1 million people that were originally from the South migrated to the Northeast and the Midwest and made a huge impact on what was happening in industry and all other ways of life. And in some ways created challenges, but not anything that we didn't need to learn about, really. The second Great Migration was 1940 to 1970, and there 5 million or more are estimated to have migrated to the Northeast and Midwest and throughout the United States. Interestingly, though, the new Great Migration, they called it, up until 2000, was when some of those very same people that had left the South because of stigmatism and racism and ability to prosper started to move back to the South and go back to where their family originally resided. Another key point that I'd really like to make about Yellow Man that I think is pretty important as you listen to the play or you are first exposed to the play is the language. Um, Not only does she have a cadence, but there's very specific language that we really just don't hear anymore, which I'm certainly grateful for. But I appreciate her bravery in writing the words so that we could appreciate the stigmatism, the bias um, between these people and also these people that were living together in South Carolina, and also those of us within a nation that we were learning to cohabitate. Some of the words that she had in her script that I looked up were Geechee and Yellow Man, Rich and High Yella, Nigger Stuff, Spook, Red Punk Nigga, Crackers, even things like Woolworths. For those of you that may be listening to this, the store of Woolworths may not be familiar to you at all, but certainly an old five and dime that has its own history within American civil rights and history. She also talks about the Chicken Bone Express and discusses other artists and authors of the time to bring you directly into that time. And I appreciated her willingness to do that. One of the last things I'd like you to think about as you read prior to reading Yellow Man, but certainly afterwards, is asking questions such as, what did the playwright want us to know? Did she intend to make us feel uncomfortable? And how did you feel while you were reading this play? I know for myself, I felt uncomfortable at some of the language, at some of the harshness of how people treated one another, and particularly how parents treated one another, the fathers, and the strength but the huge weakness of some of the mothers. Also, what do you understand at a deeper level from reading this play? What did you learn through discussion with others regarding this play? What do you hope to learn as you discuss this play with others? What scene in the play impacted you the most directly? Now that you've been exposed to this history through play and additional facts, how will you use the information? How will you use the knowledge of inter cultures, women, blacks, Midwest? How will we use this information to make life better moving forward? And what are you interested in learning more about, reading, or discussing after experiencing this particular play? I really appreciate the challenge of reading this play. Again, it was another script that I would have never picked up, but am certainly grateful I've had exposure to it, and I hope that you will feel the same way and challenge yourself in asking the tough questions, just as this playwright did, Dale Orlander Smith, Yellow Man. Thank you.